Welcome to The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio Volume 2 and our Season 4 commentary. This season might be our most pivotal and important series because there's a lot going on in Season 4 the more I think about it. And I'm going to talk first about some high-level stuff, and then we will actually get into talking about the various series that we did. But first, let's talk about what I think are the four biggest things that happened in Season 4. First of all, we moved from being a 5-day-a-week podcast to a 6-day-a-week podcast. The old-time Dragnet show would come to an end in February 2013. And I wanted to go ahead and add a 6th day for police procedural type programs that would eventually feature Dragnet, but would also play some other programs, beginning with the lineup, which we'll talk about later. And we finally reached the Bob Bailey era on yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And the beginning of the Bailey era was serialized into mostly 5-part serials that were played out originally over a week, Monday through Friday. And I had a vision for how I wanted to play them, with 2 15-minute episodes on Monday, 2 on Wednesday, and 1 on Friday, opposite another 15-minute detective program. There were a few I'd run into, and I thought this would be just a great opportunity to go ahead and play them. Making that happen led to some manipulation in the schedule, because we needed Monday and Wednesday to become available at the same time. To accomplish this, we moved Frank Race to Tuesday towards the end of its run, and had 1 week where we played 2 episodes of Let George Do It in the same week. And on Tuesday there was some slotting in of programs just to be sure that our Tuesday programs would be all finished up by the time we needed to move Frank Race over there. Now there's going to be some interesting scheduling in the first half of Season 4 before things settle down. We would hear 2 final Sherlock Holmes actors before Sherlock Holmes left our lineup, not only the departure of an original show, but also the most iconic detective of them all. Add to that we would celebrate 1,000 episodes, and you've got a season that has got so much going on in it. Talking about the individual series that we did, I would start with the first new series that we introduced on Tuesday, and that was Call the Police. Now, from its title, you might think Call the Police is kind of a procedural. It's not. Even though the lead character is a small-town police commissioner, it's pretty much a standard mystery series. The first time I heard Call the Police, it was thought that there was only 1 or 2 episodes around. We actually have 5 now. That first episode I heard kind of reminded me, in the best possible way, of an episode of Scooby-Doo. Even though you were dealing with grown characters, it just kind of had this really fun vibe to it. Call the Police was one of those rare multi-summer replacement series. Usually when there would be a summer replacement series recorded for a popular program, it would last 1 season. But Call the Police was brought back for 3 consecutive summers as a replacement for Amos and Andy. 2 different actors played the lead role of Bill Grant. Both were very well-established veteran New York radio actors in Joseph Julian and George Petrie. While this is not a series that will rank up with the top-tier detective programs from the golden age of radio, it nevertheless is just a really fun series to listen to. It may just be a bit of summertime diversion, but for what it is, it's really a nice treat.
Behind the desk, mister.
Mr. Grant?
Grab a chair. You're,
Tenney. Calvin Tenney.
Oh, yes. You've had that stand at Tremont and Pine for some time, haven't you, Mr. Tenney?
23 years, last April.
Well, let me go through the papers on it. When do you need the renewal?
Tomorrow.
Maggio, have the department suspend action until I can review this thing. Mr. Tenney can keep his stand until then.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And there was one other thing. Yesterday, I was threatened.
You were? By...
A man I had never seen before warned me to close up the stand or be killed.
What did he look like?
Oh, he's ordinary.
Well, that doesn't help a lot.
Well, he kind of medium everything, that's all.
Uh-huh. Well, I'll have the patrolman on the beat keep his eyes open. In the meantime, you take care of yourself.
Yes, sir. Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye. Now, let's get out of here, Maggio. I've got to attend a civic function.
With Libby Tyler?
Who else?
The next series, Grace Tuesdays, is one that's one of those shows that I'm really enthusiastic about, but I don't think I've ever heard from anyone who enjoys it as much as I do, although I don't think I've gotten a lot of complaints on it either. It's A Life in Your Hands, which was created by Earl Stanley Gardner, the creator of Perry Mason. Now, there was a Perry Mason radio program, and there are around 300 episodes in circulation. However, they're a bit scattered and don't form a complete storyline. So, for my money, this is as close as you'll get to the feel of the Perry Mason television program, and that gives it a special place in my heart because the mysteries that my dad watched the most with us were Perry Mason and Matlock, with these sort of crime-solving lawyers who managed to solve their case and reveal the true culprit in open court. The series follows Jonathan Cagg, a very wealthy lawyer who doesn't actually have to practice law in order to earn a living. However, he volunteers to serve as amicus curiae, aka a friend of the court who represents neither prosecution or defense, but will ask permission from the court to appear in the interest of justice and call witnesses in order to get at the truth. It's a really interesting concept, and I absolutely love it. They even have a case or two where he appears outside a typical courtroom. Most of the episodes star Carlton Cadell, who also played Tarzan over the radio, in addition to a long announcing career. While I think some of the acting can be a bit overdramatic, that just kind of increases the nostalgia value. In my opinion, this is really one of those sleeper shows that no one talks about, but is really a fascinating series that's really worth a listen.
See, which you wouldn't sell to him. Tell me this. Did Bill Nelson buy anything that day?
Si, senor. He buys a package of cigarettes.
And what?
Mr. Kegg, Bill is a nice boy. He no burn our store.
What else did Bill Nelson buy that afternoon?
He's buy a big can of lighter fruit.
That is all. Your Honor, there are two possibilities in this case as I see it. In order to determine which is true, we need the testimony of a person who was merely an innocent bystander.
We will subpoena anyone you desire, Mr. Kegg, and that person must testify to what he saw or heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, few of us ever consider that we ourselves might at any moment witness a crime. Could you recall exactly what you have heard? Or you would hold a life in your hand.
Then we needed a series that we had 2 episodes of, so that we could fill the last 2 Tuesdays of John Lunn's run and then be able to move Frank Race over to Tuesday. And that series would be Cases of Mr. Ace, a syndicated series that starred George Raft. It's a decent detective series with a fair premise, which is that Eddie Ace explains his cases to a psychiatrist so that she can expand her practical understanding of the criminal mind. One of the 2 episodes is actually a bit of an homage to the Maltese Falcon, and George Raft actually turned down the script for the Maltese Falcon. So maybe you get a bit of a feel for what might have been.
Come in, Mr. Ace. Come in, sir. Well done this time. Well done, Leonidas.
Oh, thank you, Colonel. Thank you. It was simple.
Well, sit down, sir. Sit down.
Thanks. Nice layout you got here.
You like it? You really like it, sir? It's so difficult to get proper accommodations these days. And now, sir, to the point. Where is the coin?
The coin.
Precisely.
You mean, the coin that was in the package?
Oh, please, sir, I beg of you, do not blame me for the simpleton. You know full well to which coin I have reference. Now, where is it?
Suppose you tell me. Then we'll both know.
You see, I told you he was uncooperative. I told you.
Gently, Leonidas. We must discuss this calmly.
But don't you see, he's a terrible person, a liar, a thug.
If you don't take this monkey away, Colonel, I'll break his leg.
Now, do be quiet, Leonidas, or I shall let him break your leg. A bizarre fall, indeed. Now, sir, I shall put it bluntly, concisely, and simply. I believe you have the coin. I believe that you and Stanton, Doran's partner, are working together. And you both mean to hoodwink Doran, simulate a theft on the train, and then dispose of the coin, sharing the proceeds between you and Stanton.
After Frank Race, we featured a series called The Big Guy, which starred Henry Calvin, who is best known for playing Sergeant Garcia in the 1957-59 Disney Zorro series. His character of Joshua Sharp is interesting because he is a widower and a single father of 2 elementary school-aged kids, which is definitely a very different profile from most of the detectives on the radio in the 1950s. True, Charlie Chan was a father. Kids who were focused on were teenagers who, one way or another, kept getting involved in his cases. With Joshua Sharp, there's just some really interesting contrast in this short series. He's a sweet and loving father, but he is also a tough-minded investigator when the time comes for that. So it's an interesting role that gives Henry Calvin something to work with, and I think the result is well worth your time.
And then, one Saturday morning, tragedy struck. It was on page 2, and the lead told the story. Bond Avenue mansion rob, home of broker Jacob Jansen, looted in his absence by a masked burglar. Butler held at gunpoint. City Detective Walsh Reynolds arrests former Jansen employee Willie Dooley. Willie Dooley, Josh and Debbie's friend at the carousel. Once I'd had to tell Josh that his puppy was dead, and he'd asked a lot of questions through his tears that neither I nor any other man could answer. Before approaching the subject of Mr. Dooley's dilemma, I thought I'd better have full details, so I took a cab down to Detective Reynolds' office at precinct headquarters. I'd known him casually for years, and he told me what he knew.
Well, the call came in last night at a little after 11, Mr. Sharp.
From whom?
The Jansen butler. He gave his name as Anton Schindler. The burglar had held him up while he opened a safe in the library and helped himself.
To what?
Unlisted negotiable bonds.
In the amount of?
$50,000.
Next up, we have Mr. Moto, I.A. Moto. And this was kind of a reboot of the Mr. Moto character. He was created as a Japanese Secret Service agent by American writer John Marquand. And the character enjoyed popularity in a series of movies starring Peter Lorre in the 1930s. However, after Pearl Harbor, the character, for obvious reasons, fell out of popularity. This series reimagines Mr. Moto, I.A. Moto, as an American-born citizen of Japanese descent, solving cases involving international intrigue and the Cold War. This was actually the first ever spy detective series that we did on an ongoing basis, though it certainly wouldn't be the last.
Miss Cutter, will you send a cable for me?
Certainly, sir.
Sir John Davenport, Intelligence C5, British War Office, London. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Kindly airmail pictures and complete physical description, including set of fingerprints. You're Mr. What is Mr. Hampton's first name?
Neil. Neil J.
Thank you. Including set of fingerprints, you're Neil J. Hampton. Stop. Urgent and immediate stop. Sign Moto. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Send that off before you go to lunch, will you?
Yes, Mr. Moto.
I'll be in Dr. Andrews' office if anybody wants me.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Hampton here.
Hampton, have you a lunch date?
Yes, why?
Oh, break it. Send for Gavry. We'll all three meet in your apartment at 12:30.
Anything wrong?
Yes, 12:30 at the apartment.
Right.
Our final Tuesday series of Season 4 was Murder and Mr. Malone and The Amazing Mr. Malone. These were actually multiple radio programs based on the character created by writer Craig Rice. John J. Malone was a Chicago-based attorney who solved mysteries. And he didn't do the whole courtroom confrontation thing. He would go out like a hard-boiled private eye, investigate cases, get into fights, and then would find out who did it. Really not good for the attorney fees that way, since he didn't actually defend his clients in court. But there were actually multiple radio series that were centered around John J. Malone. The first was Murder and Mr. Malone, which actually starred Frank Lovejoy, who went on to star in the first iteration of The Amazing Mr. Malone, and then Gene Raymond starred. We only have a combined 4 episodes from Lovejoy and Raymond, even though they did far more than anyone else. The bulk of what we have of Mr. Malone comes from George Petrie. We have 7 episodes from his 7-week summer replacement run. And we also have an episode of Old Gold Comedy Theater. And the reason that we played that was I realized the character, while not named John Malone, was named Michael Malone and was essentially John Malone renamed. It was all based on Craig Rice, so we included that. And we also included 4 episodes of the Australian series of The Amazing Mr. Malone. In many ways, the series reminds me of The Falcon. It's got the same style of characters with some that are a bit over the top, but it's kind of stylized and not like a so bad it's good sort of vibe that you might get with other similar New York-based programs. Of course, compared to the books, the Malone radio programs have a lot less alcohol. Malone solved most of his cases while sloshed, working with his friends who were also sloshed. And if they weren't drunk at a particular time, they would get roaring drunk before they would proceed to solve the case. Thankfully, there's a whole lot less alcohol in the radio version of Mr. Malone. I think reading the books before driving could get you a DWI. There's so much alcohol in there.
Malone's the name, John J. Malone, attorney and counselor at law. Tonight in our study of the cliche, let's examine the familiar early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. If that's true, Jeff Lewis is destined for failure. Jeff's a good-looking boy coming home at 4 in the morning. It's easy to understand why he keeps the same hours I do. He's a musician. He plays piano with Rusty Gates' band. But Jeff's not the only musician in the family. He's got a wife who can sound off, too. But, of course, her solos aren't nearly as sweet.
Our Wednesday programs, we're not going to have a whole lot to say about that. We finished up Let George Do It with all the Bob Bailey episodes we had available to play at the time. And we also played an episode of a later series from 1954 in which Olin Soule reenacted scripts that originally had been done by Bob Bailey. And this particular episode was nice because it was a script that we don't have the Bob Bailey version of. And then, of course, because of our Monday, Wednesday, Friday Johnny Dollar schedule, this became a Johnny Dollar day for the most part. We did have a couple times this season where, due to only having 4 of the 5 parts, Johnny Dollar played on Monday and Friday, and Wednesday we had a different program. We did Miss Pinkerton Incorporated, starring Joan Blondell and Dick Powell, and Johnny Fletcher, starring Albert Decker and Mike Mazurki. Miss Pinkerton was the first episode, and Johnny Fletcher was an audition program. Over the years, when it comes to series that only have 1 episode in circulation, I tend to prefer most any episode other than the first one, because in the first episode things are getting established and spend a lot of time setting up the status quo, which is going to be important if you're listening later, but if there are no later episodes, not nearly as much, and you can really catch the gist of most programs just from listening to them. But we don't really have a choice about these things. Moving on to Thursdays, and before we talk about what came after Sherlock Holmes, we should talk about the last 2 Sherlock Holmes actors that we featured. First was Ben Wright, who starred in the 1949-50 ABC New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Unfortunately, we have only 1 episode of this series, which is a shame because I think Wright does rather well. He had also substituted for Tom Conway in an episode back in the 46-47 series. And then our final interpretation is a real treat. It's the starring John Gielgud and Ralph Richardson as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. The series was produced by Harry Allen Towers of London Productions, which made a lot of radio programs for syndication in the United States and around the world. Gielgud and Richardson were 2 of the 3 greatest British actors of their generation, the other being Sir Laurence Olivier. That, plus they were terrific friends, which they really did channel into making a really compelling relationship between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. The 13-episode series is a high point for Sherlock Holmes over the radio. The final problem actually features Orson Welles as Professor Moriarty, who played Sherlock Holmes back in 1938 for the production of the immortal Sherlock Holmes, but that is probably one of my least favorite episodes of the series, as it really does seem to be overly stagey. Still, despite that flaw, I think that this is really a great way for things to end for Holmes and Watson on the great detectives of old-time radio.
Ah. Well, Holmes, well, indeed, my dear fellow. Well, it's part of the settled order of nature, I suppose, that such a girl should have admirers, Holmes, but not following her on bicycles on lonely country roads.
Yes, there are certainly some curious and suggestive details about the case. I think our first effort should be directed toward the tenants of this Charlington Hall, the house that the girl was passing when that strange cyclist disappeared.
Yes, but how do you account for the odd acquaintanceship between Carruthers and Woodley? Such very different types and manners.
You forestalled me, Watson. As so often in this case, I suppose it must be the feminine interest in it.
Come, Holmes. Now.
Last and most important point, what kind of a menage is it that pays double the market price for a governess, and yet doesn't keep a horse and carriage, although this house, Chiltern Grange, is several miles away from the station? Odd. Very odd.
So you'll go down there?
No, my dear fellow, you will.
I will?
Well, you know quite well I'm busily engaged with my new violin sonata. It may be only some trifling intrigue after all. This case is just in your line, Watson. I leave it all to you. Die ewige Frau, as Goethe so aptly says.
I don't know what that means, Holmes.
Just pass me my violin, will you please, my dear fellow? I always forget you have no German. I've been looking for a title for this new composition of mine. I think I may have found it at last.
Once we finished up with Sherlock Holmes, we didn't jump right into the next thing. We did 4 weeks of specials, which I'll talk about when we get into the specials. The next series proper we did on Thursdays was Nick Carter. Nick Carter was a fitting choice to replace Sherlock Holmes, as this character had actually been around a little bit longer than Holmes. The first Nick Carter story was released in 1886, the first Sherlock Holmes story in 1887. The big difference between Holmes and Nick Carter, though, is that Sherlock Holmes and his original stories in his original form became an iconic character. And these stories have been read for more than a century now. Nick Carter was a dime novel detective. While his books were ostensibly written by Nick Carter, that was a pseudonym for the actual writers. And the character went through a wide variety of different iterations, though along the way, the original portrayals of Nick Carter inspired characters such as Doc Savage. So the radio program in which Nick Carter featured was just the latest in a long line of iterations of this character. The radio series starred Lon Clark, and the first season had just one of the most iconic openings in all of old-time radio.
What's the matter? What is it?
Another case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
Yes, it's another case for that most famous of all manhunters, the detective whose ability at solving crime is unequaled in the history of detective fiction, Nick Carter, Master Detective.
That opening, like other aspects of the series, would change or evolve over time. I think the radio writers tended to draw on a lot of the Nick Carter stories that had gone before for inspiration. And that leads to a series that really have a wide variety of different tones and overall setups. Some episodes of Nick Carter feel like the old school adventure detective stories of the early 20th century. There are some mysteries that are a bit spooky and creepy and feel like it's something that could have aired on The Shadow, while others might remind you of the Boston Blackie series, which overlapped Nick Carter for a few years that it was on the air. And for me, I really found the wide variety of different stories that Nick Carter told to really be entertaining. And the character, despite sometimes being a bit of a know-it-all, also being a lot of fun to listen to. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Guess that'll hold him. Gosh, it took 3 of us to knock him cold. He a fighter or something?
Hey, I know him. It's Nick Carter, the Dick.
Wow. Nick Carter? Hey, and a good-looking doll.
Well, it's a good thing you called me in time. Now, what are we going to do with them now that we got them, huh? We can't just leave them lying around. Somebody's bound to notice them.
Hey, the fish tank.
Yeah, that's right. We'll throw them in there. Then when they're good and drowned, we'll drain the tank and get them and the other stuff out at the same time.
Good idea, Lippy.
Okay.
Here, Pete. You lift the lid. You shove the girl in, Lippy.
All right.
Jake and I'll dump that Carter guy in.
It'll be a real pleasure to do something like this to a copper.
Here, come on.
Ready?
Go ahead. Put Carter in first.
Okay, here he goes. Happy swimming, Carter! Yeah.
Now dump the dame in, Jake.
In you go, lady.
That's okay. Hey, listen, guys. Suppose they get out.
We'll see that they don't get out. Stokey, put the lid down on the tank.
Okay, Jake.
And I'll put this padlock on, and they're safe as if they was in jail.
That's good work. Hey, look, boys, they're coming too.
So what? Who cares now?
Yeah, who cares? Lippy, turn on the water.
Okay. Here she comes, Jake.
On to Fridays, where we finished up the Lund era. We played Gerald Moore's audition for Johnny Dollar, and then we were into the Bob Bailey era with the Johnny Dollar serials. And there's so much that could be said about these stories. To me, in terms of popular genre stories, this is the pinnacle of quality for old-time radio. And these 58 weeks were really magical. As much as I love so many half-hour old-time radio programs, there really is a limit in terms of how complex the stories can be. With the serials, you're able to tell a lot of stories, many of which feel very cinematic in scope, with a wide variety of characters, and also a career performance from Bob Bailey, who became the definitive Johnny Dollar, who displays a depth and range that was the equal of any actor in the era to work behind the microphone. And of course, he was ably supported by a company of accomplished radio actors, including Virginia Gregg, Herb Vigran, Harry Bartell, and Barney Phillips. And with top-notch writing from talented radio mystery writers. The serial run is superlative, and there's not much more this introduction can add. I'll have a lot to say in the episodes themselves.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Bob Bailey as
Johnny Dollar. I told you, that's my name. What do you want, an affidavit?
I've got to be sure.
Look, you've got me out here in the middle of the jungle with a gun in my back.
Don't turn around.
And I can't even see you. You think I'd be kidding you at a time like this?
Any move at all, and it'll be your last.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Santo Tomas, Mexico. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To the Home Office, Northeastern Fidelity and Bonding, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an account of additional expenses during my investigation of the Alvin Summers embezzlement of $75,000. Item 12, 2 cents. Just what I figured my life was worth at the moment. Gloria Harris had taken me down the beach and into the jungle to show me the hut where Alvin Summers had been hiding out. There was no sign of him. But I heard a noise outside in the underbrush and went out to investigate. I didn't see a thing, but I felt something. A gun barrel pressing against the back of my neck.
I want to talk to you, Dollar.
Well, you've got a quaint way of arranging a conversation, believe me. I could do better if you'd take away that gun.
Johnny?
Don't answer.
Who's answering?
Johnny?
Wait.
Well?
Be in your hotel room in exactly 1 hour.
Look, what's this all about?
You're looking for Alvin Summers, aren't you?
Oh, am I?
Johnny, where are you?
I've got some information about him for you.
Let's have it now.
Not now. I've got to talk to you alone. Be in your hotel room in town in an hour, understand?
Look.
Do as I say and be sure you're alone. Alone.
Okay.
Now, just keep looking straight ahead. Don't turn around and don't tell anyone about this. Anyone. Understand?
You make it pretty clear.
I'll be watching you, Dollar. You won't see me, but I'll see you.
I can believe it, mister.
The plan for the serial run, as I've said, is Monday episodes 1 and 2, Wednesday episodes 3 and 4, and Friday episode 5, plus a lesser-known 15-minute mystery. Initially, in order to try and ensure that people stuck around for the shorter mystery, I played it first, and then the Johnny Dollar episode right after it. However, listeners were not happy with that, and I came to see that people are going to listen or not listen, and, I can't control that. So eventually I went ahead and we changed it so for the 5th part, we played part 5, and then afterwards went ahead and played the extra drama series. In this season, you'll hear 3 different series that were featured opposite part 5 of Johnny Dollar on Friday. First is Police Woman. Now, this series told the real-life adventures of New York City's first female homicide detective, Mary Sullivan. And in this episode that we play, Sullivan herself appears. It's unfortunate we only have 1 episode of this series. I certainly would love to hear more, because she lived an interesting life, and I think that for a 15-minute mystery, these were pretty well produced. We also played the Carter Brown mysteries. These represented our first foray into playing Australian programs. It was a bit before we did it with the Mr. Malone series. These were adventures that were told in 4 parts. So much like the Johnny Dollar episodes, the mystery was given room to breathe, though I don't think the quality was quite the same. While the stories were produced in Australia, many of their settings and characters were American, with varying degrees of authenticity. In many ways, this sort of approach to Australians doing American detective dramas kind of reminds me of the idea of the spaghetti western. But I found them to be pretty enjoyable. Now, we do take a break from doing Carter Brown mysteries when we start running into serials that have missing episodes. Because of the nature of the Carter Brown series, we need 4 consecutive weeks. Because I didn't want to make people wait 2 weeks for a solution. So we also did the Dr. Tim Detective series, which was a series about a doctor who helps solve crimes and assists the police department with the help of his 2 young friends. It's a delightful educational series. It's pitched to a younger audience, but I don't think it writes down, and so I think it's perfectly enjoyable for adults in the 21st century. Then, in January of 2013, we added a 6th day to our schedule for police procedurals, since my original old-time radio podcast, the Old Time Dragnet Show, was coming to an end in February. For the first series on this Saturday, we chose The Lineup. The Lineup starred William Johnstone, perhaps best known for playing the Shadow, but an actor with a long history on radio in all sorts of programs and in all sorts of different roles. The series was made up of fictional procedural stories and set in an unnamed city. Each episode began with a lineup scene, which gave the series a really unique cadence and feel to it.
May I have your attention, please? You people out there on the other side of the wire, may I have your attention, please? Thank you. My name is Greb, Sergeant Matt Greb. I'll explain the lineup to you. Each of the suspects you will see will be numbered. I'll call off a number, their name and charge. If you have any questions or identifications, please remember the number assigned to the prisoner as I call his name. At the end of the line, when I call for questions or identifications, call out the number. If you're sure or not too sure of the suspect, have him held.
I don't like this, Lieutenant. I'm worried.
The officers who took your name will assist you. They're seated among you. Please be prompt with your questions or identifications. When the prisoners leave here, they are sent to the bathroom and dressed back into their jail clothes. It makes it quite difficult to bring them back here after they leave. The questions I ask these suspects are merely to get a natural tone of voice, so do not pay too much attention to their answers, as they often lie. Bring on the line. This way, boys, right down the stage. You, the front man, walk to the end of it, take your place. The rest follow. Turn around and face front. Hands by your sides. Look straight ahead so the people out there can see you. Number 1, John Meston, vagrancy. Where do you live, John?
House on 69th Street.
I know that, but what number?
Ain't no number. One with a flag and over now.
All right. What were you doing when the officer arrested you?
I was in a barrel.
What were you doing in a barrel?
Nothing, Lieutenant. When things get going bad, I find me a barrel and I sit in it until I feel better. Anything wrong with that?
The lineup initially co-starred Wally Mayer as Sergeant Matt Greb. Mayer's ill health and eventual passing in 1951 led to Jack Moyles filling that role in the series. However, the character he played was Sergeant Pete Carger. The lineup is a well-written and very realistic series, but from a host standpoint, it was one of the most difficult series that I had to try to curate. The series and its documentation were very much in flux, with the best information we had on air dates changing, as well as available episodes, as well as what the episodes which we thought were titled one thing, it later turned out were titled something else. And we actually revisited this series at least a couple more times to fill it out with new episodes that became available. So in terms of having everything in strict chronological order, this is one of the more challenging series we did. We did the best we could in 2013 and 14, but there were errors in the way that it was presented based on poor information we had at the time. But I don't think that should really detract from enjoyment of the series. That brings us to our specials for Season 4. The first big one was our 800th episode special, Deadline at Dawn. And for this special, I opted to play the suspense version, which was one of the 1-hour suspense programs when Robert Montgomery was the producer of Suspense, instead of the Lux Radio Theater version, because I thought that the suspense version was better as a mystery and capturing that spirit of a detective story. And that's actually the only hour-long special we did in this season. For our 850th episode, we did another episode of Murder Clinic, and this one was the Holloway Flats tragedy. And it featured Max Carados, who was a blonde detective created in the first quarter of the 20th century when there were a whole bunch of characters who were popular detectives who have since been forgotten. Carados is really one of the better ones, and it's so great that we were able to have him as part of the great detectives of old-time radio. For our 900th episode special, we got to do something that really tickled me, in that we could combine my two great genre loves of detective stories and science fiction with a detective-based X-1 play from 1956 starring future Johnny Dollar actor Wendell Kramer. And it's a really fun play, got a great science fiction twist while still really being true to the feel of the detective story. I really enjoyed that one. For our 950th episode special, we presented a post-Sam Spade detective show pilot starring Howard Duff called The McCoy. It was a good story, and Duff turned in a good performance as always. The series wasn't picked up for a lot of reasons. In general, it was hard to launch a detective series in 1951, and also, I don't think Duff was fully blacklisted, but he was definitely graylisted for having been mentioned in red channels, so he found it hard to find work, and a network radio program was just not in the offing at that point. For our 1000th episode special, I decided to revisit the story we did for our pilot, called Northside 777, and the same Screen Directors Playhouse program. I felt the first playing kind of got overshadowed by my overly long opening commentary, and also by the fact that it was a pilot episode launched before anything else was added, and so most of the listeners hadn't heard it. So I went ahead and I revisited it. It was such a big milestone to get to 1,000. At the same time that I was doing the 1,000th episode, we also were doing 4 specials following the conclusion of Sherlock Holmes. First up, we did an adaptation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's non-Sherlock Holmes story, The Lost Special. There are many ways to adapt The Lost Special. Escape really did it with the feel of a detective story, and what makes that extra nice is it stars Ben Wright, whose Sherlock Holmes we got to hear so little of. And then we turn to a figure from detective fiction, the original detective, some might say, Edgar Allan Poe's creation, C. Auguste Dupin. Dupin did not have his own radio series, but each one of his stories was adapted to radio. And so we went ahead and presented adaptations over the course of 3 weeks. This is the only time so far that we featured an episode of Weird Circle, which was generally known for horror stories. And then we played an episode of Suspense. And then we concluded with an NBC University Theater episode. The last one was actually my favorite of the 3. It featured Adolphe Monjou as Dupin, and he just does such a great job bringing the character to life.
Good evening, Garand.
Good evening, Dupin, Monsieur Paul.
Good evening,
Monsieur le Préfet.
Sit down, Garand, sit down. We haven't seen you here of late. Have you come on special business?
Why, no, nothing in particular.
Well, we shall have a nice chat. Everything going well with our gallant officers of the police?
Quite well.
But, Monsieur Garand, what of the letter? Have you found it?
Ah, Monsieur Poe, you force me to speak. I am a tormented man. I am quite at the end of my rope.
No success yet.
None. And my reputation, I shall lose my office if I fail.
There was also a large reward, I believe you said.
Tremendous. I would be rich, but I shall never get it.
I am not so sure, Garand. I think you might.
No. I have done everything. I shall be ruined. Tell me, Dupin, what shall I do?
Do? Why, take advice, to be sure.
I assure you, Dupin, I am perfectly willing to take advice and pay for it. I would give 50,000 francs to the man who could help me.
50,000, eh?
My personal check.
Well, then, let us consider. We will take this case back to its very beginning and examine it.
Our final special of this season marked the 1050th episode. It was an episode of The Crime Club. The Crime Club was essentially a tie-in to a series of paperback mystery novels that essentially adapts the plots of mystery novels into a half-hour radio program. They have an interesting and memorable format for how the shows begin and end, And the episodes themselves are a lot of fun. In the decade since I did the first Crime Club episode, I've only done one more, although I'm always meaning to do more. And that's it for our Season 4 commentary. I hope you enjoy the season, and I'll return with a commentary for Season 5 in a few months. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off and wishing you happy listening.